Okay, we are up to Daf Kuv Beis, Amar Aleph, Kumlan and Black Gemara. We're up to the very top of the page. So basically, we are learning about those three kings, the three kings that forfeited their chelik in Olam Haba, including Yeravam, Achav, and Menashe. So we're going to go through the three kings, and we're talking about how yesterday we learned how Yeravam was able to convince everyone to follow him. And to the extent that the Gemara says, and he had them all undersign his authority and the complete subservience to him. And he very wily, he had these Rishayim sitting alongside Tzaddikim who were able to convince them, and the Tzaddikim being a bit naive and very believing, and I guess they believe everything that he said. So it says on top of the page, the Achi HaShaloni, also Achi HaShaloni, who was a Navi, and Achi HaShaloni also signed. Tor, the Chosim, he signed. Now, the Rishonim already say there's no way that he signed a document saying that you can worship Avodah Zarah regardless. He just signed, we accept Avshalom as Avshalom, we accept Yeravam as being a king, and we accept his instructions and his directives and his commands. What he didn't do, except if it's an Avera. He assumed that Yeravam, was seen more later, was an unbelievable Talmud Chacham, he was an unbelievable tzaddik, so he just believed that everything will be all right, didn't bother writing it. That's what we mean Achi HaShaloni signed. And so what happened was Yehu Tzadika Rabbah. Yehu was a great tzaddik. Yehu became a king, he was appointed by Leo, and he became a king for Malki Yisrael. The Rameh says in tomorrow's Gemara that he was the only king amongst Malki Yisrael that was a tzaddik. No one else was. By Malki Yehuda, it was like sort of, odds and ends. One yes, one no, father, son, and everyone was different than the next. As if they alternated practically. But by the Malki Yisrael, they were all Rishoyim, except this Yehu. And this Yehu was appointed by Eliyahu Hanavi, and it says in the Pasuk there, Vayom Hashem el Yehu, Yad Sitz, Asher Tevois Elas HaYosher Be'ena, you did everything right. B'chol Asher B'levavi Asisa L'beis Achav. Everything that I wanted to do to punish Achav, you did for me, you carried it out. B'nei Leveim Yesh L'cha Kisi Yisrael, so 4 generations will sit on the throne by Eden. And it says in the same time, it says, so he didn't completely follow Hashem's way, the path of Hashem, with his entire heart. But how do I know? Because didn't totally remove from the sin of Yeravam. Yeravam put these, sentinels, he put these soldiers there on all the roads leading to Yerushalayim that people shouldn't go. And then he put these 2 calves in Dan and in Beis El that people should go there and they worship them. They worship these calves, and he did not remove them. And the Gemara wants to know why he didn't remove them. Asher Hechte Yisrael, which caused Eden to sin. My Gormale, if he was such a tzaddik, why didn't he remove them? Amar Abaye says, Bris Krusel is for we had more cotton that when we say things, the words have weight. And even if we didn't really mean it, the words themselves still carry a lot of weight, and they make things happen. So Yehu, in order to be able to carry out his scheme, his plan, getting rid of all the bad Nevi'im, getting rid of all the bad kohanim, the corrupt kohanim, and all that, he devised a plan, and he told them that I'm the greatest idol worshiper, and why don't you come and all join me? And when they all did, he killed them all. But because he expressed his words that I am the greatest worshiper of the Baal, it sort of prevented him from just getting rid of the Avodah Zarah completely. Remember, it says Achav. He told them Achav sinned and worshipped the Baal only a little bit. Yehu, talk about himself in third person. Yavdena Harbe, I will do it a lot. So therefore, because he said that, even though his intention was totally pure, that's why it was incomplete. Rava says, he saw the signature of Achi HaShaloni, the Torah, and he made a mistake. Because it says in Pasuk, V'shachata. Why did they slaughter to these Avodah Zarahs? Seitim ha'miku, Hashem says the Seitim, the deviants, they were much more stringent with their rules, which was not to go to Yerushalayim and worship their idols. They're much more stringent than me. And I just give, I admonish them. What are we talking about? They're much deeper, much more stringent than I was. I said, if somebody does not go 3 times a year to the Oila Regel, you committed a sin, and I say, mitzvah say. Well, there's another version, you committed a negative sin because it says L'yira Panerekim. So, okay. But the Haim Amru, these people, those followers of Yeravam, if you do go to Oil Regel, you should be stabbed with a knife. You should be killed on the spot. Now, what actually happened here? We're talking about there were a number of tzaddikim. Well, you said yesterday's Gemara, there were tzaddikim there, and they followed Yeravam. Yeravam was appointed by Chia Shleini to be a king. When Chia Shleini was seeing Gemara tomorrow, took off his or later he took off his mantle and he cut it into 12 parts, gave 10 to Yeravam, and he said, "You will be a king." So Yeravam was basically appointed by Hashem. Achia Shaleni was unbelievable tzaddik. We lived in Babasa. Achia Shaleni, was from Har Sinai. So when then Yeravam came along and said, "Let's not go to Yerushalayim and do something here instead," they thought, well, maybe Yerushalayim is merely for Malkei Yisrael. We're the northern kingdom. We're Malkei Yehuda. We're Malkei Yisrael, and therefore we need another Beis Hamikdash. And that's what they thought. So they thought that this was actually correct, that this is what is meant to do. And that's where all the mistakes happened. And that's why Yehu made that mistake, and why Achia Shaleni signed without being so careful, and so on. Just like we have another Beis Hamikdash called Beis Choinav, we'll learn in Avodah Zarah an argument whether it was L'Shem Shemayim, according to one opinion. They said that Yisrael has its own Beis Hamikdash and we need our own. Even though in the beginning of Yeshua, when the 2.5 tribes decided to build a Mizbech on their side of the Jordan, all the Eden rallied together and there was about to be a civil war. And if not for Pinchas preventing the civil war, it would have been a civil war, a major catastrophe, which means the people already established back then, there's only one Mishkan or one Beis Hamikdash for everybody. But nevertheless, over time, that was forgotten. And that's what happened to Yeravam. The Gemara continues.
Historically, there was also a Beis Hamikdash in Mitzrayim.
That's what I'm talking about. Beis Choinav is Mitzrayim.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. Says the Gemara further. It happened at that time. The expression be'esahi we're going to focus on. What do you mean that time? Like there was a certain limited time, like a window of opportunity, or the opposite. Yeravam Yotzur, like he left Yerushalayim, he met Achia Shaleni, Hanavi, he met Achia Shaleni, the Navi, Baderech on the road, whom is Chassid B'Sabach Chadash, and he was wearing a brand new cloak. An argument who wore the brand new cloak. Was it Achia Shaleni or was it Yeravam? Tanu Elim Rabbi Yasi, we looked at the name Rabbi Yasi, Ace he Mezumenes Leparani. This was a specific time that was set aside for bad things to happen. When it says Ace he, that's a specific time. And in the context of that pasuk, it's for bad things. For example, also it says, Be'ez Pekudosam, when I remember, they will get lost. So this is the Yirmiyah saying this. Again, the times around the Churban was a bad time. Rabbi Yasi says, every time it says Ace a time, it's a window, either good or bad. It says Ace Mizumenes L'Paranis, it's a time which was set aside for bad things to happen. It says another passage, Be'ez Rotzen, when there's a good time, Inisicha, I will respond. That's a time, a window, where things, it's an Ace Rotzen, where we can get responded to whatever we ask. Then it's an apostle. Again, we're going to talk about time. In the day that I will remember, in the day that I will remember, as bad things are going to happen, I'm going to add also, for example, the sin of the Meraglim in this case. This is a time set aside for Peronius. In other words, this is the time that Tisha B'Av, Beis Hamikdash was destroyed, the second Beis Hamikdash was destroyed, and the Meraglim were there as well. It says the he again at that time, Yehuda left his brothers after Yosef was sold. Again, that time, also, it was a time that was terrible things were going to happen, because as all of that, 2 of his sons died. He married, and then Tamar almost got burnt at the stake, if not Yehuda saving her. So bad things happened. And another example, so we say a bad time, or sometimes the place also is a bad place. So Vayelech Rechavam Shechem. Rechavam went to Shechem. Shechem bo Kol Yisrael laham lechois, and everybody came to Shechem to crown Rechavam. Rechavam was Shlomo Melech's son, and he was going to be crowned. Tana we learned Rabbi Yasi. Mokum mezumah leperonis b'Shechem. Shechem is a place that is set aside for bad things to happen. For example, Inu es Dina, that's what Dina was tormented and raped by Mechamor b'Shechem. Machru Echav is Yosef b'Shechem. Where did their brother sell Yosef b'Shechem? Like, even though the Torah says it was in Doisena, so Rashi tells us that Doisena was neighboring Shechem. It was like a satellite suburb of Shechem. Or Doisena is not even the name of a place. Doisena means they got together to work out. Das means laws, to work out according to halacha, should they kill Yosef or not, because Yosef was considered a rebel or a moirib of Malchus, committed treason, because Yehuda was considered the king amongst brothers. And B'Shechem nechaka machav David. And Shechem is when Yerushalayim broke off, or the majority of the Shvatim broke off and went their separate ways. The Yeravam left Yerushalayim. Amar Abchilei Papa sheyotza, he left Mipiska sheyushalayim. He left from the environs of Yerushalayim, never to return. Vayimtza Isai Achish Leini, Achish Leini, the Navi found the Baderech on the way when Miskasa Besamach was wearing a brand new coat. So this Achish Leini, just to give you, so he was from the Yaitze Mitzrayim. He was the teacher of Shloim HaMelech, and he's the Navi here, Rechavam Bayirav. He's talking about he lived over 400 years. He lived over 400 years, more than that. And
is he one of the ones that David HaMelech leaves Shlomo to kill?
The base of Mikdash was built. So you're talking about living for over 500 years, which is amazing. And then in the Baal Shem Tov's letters, the Baal Shem Tov says before he revealed himself to the world, he learned with Achia Shaleni. Achia Shaleni was then a Malach, 10 years together. As we'll see in the Gemara later, Achia Shaleni knew all the secrets of the Torah. Ushneim levadim besada, those two were alone in the field. My Kisalma Chadash. First of all, what do you mean he wore a new cloak? Why do we need to know whether he wore a new cloak or an old cloak? What does that even mean? Amar of Nachman says Kisalma Chadash, that it was like that union with Yeravam. Yeravam then was like a brand new garment, meaning Ma Salma Chadash Eimashum David, are no flaws in a brand new garment. His Torah had no flaws. I will see in the Gemara later that Yeravam was an unbelievable gun and tzaddik, and so therefore, when he said to them, "Let's put these two calves over here and don't go to Shalayim," people were convinced that what he's saying is based on merit, because ain't lahai b'shum daifi, no flaws. He then was revealed secrets of the Torah that nobody ever heard before. Between the two, that's not real. Between Yeravam and Achia, they were discussing secrets of the Torah that no one ever heard before. Why do we need to know there were only two people out there in the field? What's it trying to say? All the other Tamid Achamim living in that generation, compared to them, like the grass, like nothing. Nobody was comparable to Achia Shaleni and to Yeravam. That every reason in the Torah, every secret of the Torah was revealed to them, because they love and like a field which is openly exposed. Then the pasuk says, Hashem sort of reprimands them and says, Lochein. So even though Achia Shaleni said Nevi'as to Yeravam that you're going to be a king and there'll be a division here between all the Shvatim, nevertheless, the Shvatim did the wrong thing for leaving behind David HaMelech's descendants and starting their own kingdom. So the Eibusha says through Nevi'as, he said to them, Lachein, therefore, Titnu Shluchim, therefore you sent away Al Mereshes Gas, the people who bequeath you gas, we'll see what that means, but the Arziv, houses of Arziv, of falsity, La Arzav, and therefore you became subservient to also false people. Well, on account of why? Because of Malki Yisrael, on account of that you follow the Jewish kings. What exactly is going on here? A voice came out of heaven. And said to them, Misha Haragas Aplishti. I don't understand. David HaMelech killed Goliath. And he bequeathed you gas. The Farshim tried to understand, where do you find that that gas was taken over by David and given to the Yidden? But what maybe it means is that now that the fear of being attacked by Goliath is no longer there, so you can walk freely in gas. Titnu shiluchim lebanov. Are you going to send away his own children and leave his children to go somewhere else? And bote achziv, and therefore the house, your houses of falseness, achziv. You are now going to become subservient to goyish kings. I know why, because Malki Yisrael, because you decided to follow Malki Yisrael. The Nevi'is was this is going to happen. Doesn't mean it's the right thing. Now that we discussed that Yerovam, what he did was he basically steered the populace away from Malki Yehuda. So he affected not only the relationship to the Eibishter, but also the relationship from one Jew to the next. So any Aved in the Torah basically falls into two categories. Either they are ben Adam lechaveiro, or ben Adam lemakom. Either you're impacting on someone else, stealing, hurting, killing, or you're impacting the Eibishter, not doing the mitzvahs that we're meant to do. But the Yeravam impacted on both. There's one Avera that impacts on both. And which Avera is that? If you enjoy something in this world without a bracha, it's as if you're stealing from Hashem and from the Yidden. Now, Pashta Pshat is, what do you mean stealing from Hashem? So we had more brachas there in the sixth parak, that La Hashem ha'aretz u'malaya, the entire world belongs to Hashem. What right do we have to eat? So we say, Shemai, Shemai, Hashem, how do we say that the world is given to us? Kan ayidei bracha. Because we ask the two psukim that contradict each other. So we answer, Koidim the bracha, it's Hashem's. After bracha, it's ours. So literal reading would be that we are stealing from Hashem the bracha. What are we then? How are we impacting the Yidden? How are we impacting the Yidden? Rashi there in the Gemara bracha says an astonishing thing. Rashi says there, the pshat is not that we're stealing the food from Hashem. The pshat is that we're stealing the bracha from Hashem. Hashem is waiting for us to make a bracha and acknowledging the fact that He created everything. And when we do not make a bracha, what we're doing is we just robbed Hashem from that praise and that acknowledgement. And the Mefarshim wonder how Rashi comes up with such a pshat, because simple pshat is you're stealing food. But it would seem to me that Rashi's pshat is based on this Gemara right here. We're saying two things happen, but it's not like two separate Avera. We're saying you did one Avera and it affects both. How are we affecting the Yidden? Because Hashem would then reward the Yidden for the bracha, and He's not going to reward us because He didn't get the bracha. So it seems that the one Avera of not making a bracha impacts both the Eibishter and the Yidden exactly the same way. It's the bracha that is missing. Hashem is missing the bracha, and as a result, we're missing the bracha that comes from that bracha. So that's maybe why Rashi decided to say that the pshat is you're stealing the bracha rather than the food. Anyway, the Gemara continues. How do I know this pasuk is talking? How do you know you're stealing from Hashem? How do I know this? And people. So remember it says, Goizel Avavim, someone steals from his parents, but he says, Ain't Pesha, you haven't done anything wrong. Chavarul Ish Mashkas, he's a friend, a partner to a person who destroys. Now, what does that have to do with anything? So we're going to dash on as follows. Ein Avi, who's referring to your father, Kadosh Baruch Hu? Who Avi Chokanech? Hashem is the one who's our master. And he's talking about David, it says Avich. The Ein Imai and the mother is referring to Knesset Yisrael, to Yidden. Remember it says, Shema B'ni, listen, my son, Musar Avicha, to the admonishments of your father, about the Torah, don't deviate from the Torah of your mother. So we see that Knesset Yisrael is called Imecha, and therefore it says the pasuk, Goizel Aviv v'Imai. He stole from both of them. So he stole from Hashem and he stole from the Yidden. You're a partner to a person who destroys. You're a partner to Yerovam. He did one Avera, and he removed the Yidden from the base of Megdush, and he had them worship Avodah Zarah. It said the pasuk Yidach Yerovam about Yisrael Machre Hashem. Yerovam about caused the Yidden to go away from Hashem, and then it says Vechtim made him do another sin. It sounds like two things happened here, or it sounds like more that he made them sin. It's like two sticks hitting each other. Meaning, if the way Rashi learns, you twirl one stick into the air, you throw one stick into the air, you hurl one stick into the air, and then you throw another stick up there, and it hits the first stick, and it propels it much further than it originally went. So the same thing here. First, you cause the Eden to go astray, and then you force them to continue and not only not go to your shrine, but to worship the idols, the calves. So, talking about the calves, we'll talk about another famous calf, the golden calf, the Egel Azov. So Gemara says, "V'di and we're going to combine the two. That it says in the beginning of Dvarim, the different places that they went to. One of them is Dizov, and the Gemara says we have no recollection of a place called Dizov, the Eden was stationed. What's that all about? So we say it's not a place. It's a description of an argument that Moshe Rabbeinu had during the story of the golden Egel Hazav. And what happened there? You want to know why the Eden worshipped idols? You gave them such an abundant amount of money. They said, they don't need anymore. And that is what God that's what caused them to go astray and worship idols, because he gave them everything was good. They didn't feel a need to daven to you or to have any loyalty to you. Marshall, and the example I would give you is Einadi Doidis for knowing. We don't find the lion trampling or roaring. But if all he has is a box of straw to eat, he's starving. Elo the Kupashal Basar has a box of meat. That's when he gets all excited. Rabbi said, Adi Ravam. So before the story, the incident of Ravam, the one sin that the one sin that the Eden were all culpable of and continuously being punished for was the golden Egel Hazav. You saw Yanki Megalech, they were only had dealings with one particular calf. But the Kanva Elech from here on in, Mishnayim Vishloisha Golem. From two, it became three. From the two additional ones that Yeravam placed, one in Dun and one in Beis El, and people worshipped, so now suddenly we're going to be punished for three calves. There is no punishment that comes to this world. Doesn't have a 24th of Hechra Litra Shel Egel. We learned in that when you sell products and you're a retailer, and the scales, you should always be generous and tip the scale to benefit of the buyer, and the scale should tip downwards. And that amount, the extra we say you have to put onto the buyer so that it's a tip. A 24th of that is the amount of the punishment for every Aveda that Eden did at that time. We added on a 24th of that extra amount, however you quantify that, for the Aveda of the Egel Hazav. The Shenemer says, whenever I remember you for Aveda, I'm going to remember these other sins. It took 24 generations till finally it came to the day of reckoning when they were the complete punishment of the Egel Hazav happened. And what happened 24 generations later? Urban Bayis Rishon. And Rashi over here, the long Rashi, very interesting, it's a good Rashi to remember, goes through every generation from Nachshon ben Aminadav till Tzidkiyahu, the final king. And he goes through every single king that this Malki Yehuda had. And so the Gemara says here, and this is very similar to what we had a few days ago with Noiv Ir Koinim, that they were punished, and it came finally to a time when the punishment was over. That when Nebuchadnezzar was standing in Noiv, and we said that that's it. That's when the punishment for Noiv was over, and the same thing, the collective punishment, same thing with the Egel Hazav. The Churban Bayis is when the collective punishment for the Egel ended. And what happened there was, it says in Pasuk, finally, this pasuk came to an end, was collected. It says, they called in my ears, a loud voice, lame was to say, there came the time that we remember the city, the ish clay mashchisa beyada, and the person that comes to destroy, it means when Nebuchadnezzar is coming, this is the day I remember, which is the Egel Hazav, the same expression, finally will come to an end. Then it says, after this thing, we don't know what this thing is, he still did not return from his evil ways. What event? What occurred here? Amar Baba, and this is an amazing Gemara. Abba said, after Hashem grabbed a hold of Kivayachol of Yeravam in his beged, on his clothing. This is a vision that he had. Amalei said, Yeravam, Chazor bach, do tshuva. V'ani v'ata uben Yishai, you and Yishai netayil b'Gan Eden. We'll take a walk in Gan Eden. Amalei mi b'rosh. Who's going to be first? Ben Yishai b'rosh. David Melch will be first. He said, I'm not going. But we already had before that sometimes when you say Ben somebody, you don't call him by his first name. It's a derogatory, it's a pejoratory way of speaking. But we also had that Rabbi Shimon Levi, when he asked the Mashiach, what's going on, am I going to go on Haba? And he said, Ben Levi, you're going. And he told that to Leo. And Leo said, if he called you and your father, that means you're both going into Elam Haba. So here, it definitely was not said in a pejorative way. So what happened here? So it says, I remember seeing a long time ago, one of the Mefarshim says like this: we had before Machlekes Rabbi Yechon Bavu, who's greater, a tzaddik or about Shuvah? So some want to say there's actually no argument. There's two kinds about Shuvahs. We had in Gemara Yuma. There's about Shuvah that does Shuvah ma'ava, out of love, and there's a Shuvah about does out of yira, out of fear. Someone does Shuvah out of ava, then all the averis become mitzvahs. And you do Shuvah me'yira, then all your averis become like a shogeg. So when Rabbavu said that about Shuvah is greater than a tzaddik, he was talking about Shuvah from ava. Tshuva Ava is greater than a tzaddik, but about Tshuva Meira is lower. And this is what happened here. When the Abisha said to Yeravim, do Tshuva, he meant do complete Tshuva Me'ava, and then you will be greater than tzaddik, and you're going to lead. Because he says, Ani va'ata u'ben yishai. The Abisha clearly said, Yeravim, you're first. Because they're about Tshuva. But when Yeravim then asked the question, the mere fact that he asked the question, suddenly it wasn't just out of pure love. Everything with the cheshbon and everything else, it's a lower level about Shuvah. You're lower level about Shuvah. Then a tzaddik comes before you. So in that case, David is going to come before you. He said, I'm not coming. Gemara continues, which is difficult Gemara to understand regardless. Gemara says, for whatever reason, Abavu was enamored by the subject of the three kings who forfeited the Cheg and Haba, and he said dashen a lot on it. And became weak. He took upon himself, that he will no longer dashen or dwell on this subject. But Kivan the Idbach, as soon as he got cured, he started dashing again. Amri, they said, you promised, you said you will no longer dashen on this subject. Amr, he said, Inu mihadu, did they ever change their ways from bad to good? So why should I change my ways? And therefore I can continue focusing on this subject. Now, why he was so enamored with the subject, I'm not so sure. I don't know. So the Gemara continues. He wasn't the only one. Rav Ashi, he also dwelled a lot on this subject of the three malachim, or at least once he was talking about it. And Amr said, "Lamacha tomorrow, niftach b'chavir. Tomorrow, the subject is going to be a subject about my colleagues." He was referring to the three malachim, Yeravam and Achav and Menashe, as his three colleagues. Also, Menashe came along. Menashe is chazal b'cham appeared in his dream. Amr, he says, "Chavrecha v'chavele." What am I, your friend? Am I your father's friend? Who do you think you are? Who do you think you are that you're calling me a friend? Let me see if you know halacha. Tell me. Where do you? We all know that you're supposed to make hamaisi from the best part of the bread. Which part of the bread is the best part of the bread?
This is a well-known Gemara.
Yes, it is. And I remember, and unfortunately, I don't remember, a weak memory there, but I remember the beautiful shot. Why particularly this halacha that he brought up, as if there's some kind of a I don't know, a link between this particular halacha and the fact that Rav Ashi didn't respect Menashe the way he's supposed to, and he worshipped Avodah. I can't remember the moment what it is. I remember it was a beautiful shot. Anyway, so he said, I don't know which is the best part of the bread. You have no idea which part of the bread one should be making a moitzi on. You call me a colleague? How dare you? Amalei, so Rav Ashi said, tell me, teach me which is the best part of the bread. Tomorrow I will actually repeat it in your name. Amalei, he said to him, he says, where the bread, I guess, gets crustiest first. It's a machlekes in the poskim whether he meant the bread that is touching the side of the oven, or he meant exactly the opposite side, which is more exposed to the fire. So the machlek is there, but it's the crust of the bread. Or others say it's the part of the bread that bakes first, which is like the middle of the bread. In other words, we're no wiser now than before. Amalei, he said, I'm bewildered. If you're so smart My time at why did you worship Avodah Zarah? Amalek. So this is actually a very important Gemara because it really happens in the world today. We constantly are judging people today on how they behaved 20, 30, 40 years ago when the mindset then was very different. And we are judging people's behavior back then based on how we think today. And even though at that time people thought very differently. So Rashi is told the following. You're sitting today, remember you lived in Gemara Avodah Zarah, we lived in Gemara Sanhedrin actually also, that they got rid of, they got rid of the Yetzer Hara of Avodah Zarah. So you have no idea why anybody would even be interested in worshiping an idol. Zero. And you're judging me why we worshipped idols. He says to Rabash, let me tell you one thing. Ye have a hustle, you, the very same Ravashi. If you would have been living at the time that we lived, having the kitna, you would have picked up a shipuliglim, you came out of bed and you're wearing your pajamas, you're wearing your whatever your nightgown, you wouldn't bother getting dressed. You would lift your nightgown, you would run after me to go and worship idols. It would have been much worse than we were. So what are you sitting here and judging of me? So the Machan, the following day, Amul Rabbanan, Ravashi came into the base of Medrash and he said to Rabbanan, Niftich B'Ravasa, let me tell you a halacha that I heard from my Rebbe. Then the Gemara continues, Achav, remember we have 3 kings that didn't have a Chedgam Habam. So we discussed Yeravam, and there's Menashe, and then there's Achav. So Yeravam and Achav both Malki Yisrael, Menashe was Malki Yehuda. Achav, what's the name Achav? What's the origin of the name Achav? Och la shamayim, woe, he was woe to heaven, terrible to heaven, and of la yochavim, and he was very closely linked to Avodah Zarah. Och la shamayim, what do you mean that he woe is to heaven? Where do you find such a concept? If Stephen says och l'tzara yivalid, that what that woe that tzaras will emerge. So och means woe. And of Lavaidas Gechavim, and how you know that a father to Lavaidas Gechavim, he says Kerachem of Alabanim, that the of is the relationship to I guess to the Bnei Shalom Kerachem Alabanim. Over here, he did it to Avodah Zarah. So that's what he's called. That he was so in love with, infatuated with Avodah Zarah, and therefore it says he's called Achav. So you went further. The smallest Avera that Achav did was equal to the worst Avera that Yerovam ben Nevat did. Rabbi says, Achav was far worse than Yerovam. So asking what a question of say, so why every single Avera there always dates back to Yerovam? Talk about Achav. Achav was much worse. Why by Yehu it says, he didn't remove the Chatas Yeravim. He should have said he didn't remove the Chatas of Achav. Because Yeravim, even though his Aveda was small, but he was the one who opened up that door. He was the one who started. It's like Amalek. Amalek lost when he attacked Eden, but he was an enabler. He therefore made it easier for others to do the same. Okay, then the Pasuk says, Gam Mizbechaisam. Also, the Mizbeach is gegalim, like mounds, al talmid, so they're on furrows in the fields. What does that mean? Amar Rabbi Yechon says, Ein loch kol telim v'telim be'ed Yisrael shlehem in olav Achav v'yechavim. That Achav placed Avodah Zarah on every furrow, everywhere, all over Yisrael, v'yishtachelei, and he worshipped it. So Manolon le'osi la'almadah said, how do you know that Achav also didn't have a share in the world to come? The Chesiv says, "V'chrati la'achav," I will cut down the entire family of Achav, even Mashtin Bikir. The Radak says there in Tanakh, Mashtin Bikir means that even the dogs that normally urinate against the wall, even those will be completely destroyed. Everybody will be completely destroyed. And here he says that it means, Rashi says it means that even the young ones who have the smallest understanding, everyone will be wiped out. But Otzar will be held back, for Otzar will be forsaken, be Yisrael amongst the Eden. What's the 2 expressions? Otzar b'Olam Hazeh will be held back from Olam Hazeh, he will die prematurely, but Otzar b'Olam Haba, and he will be forsaken by Olam Haba. Amar Rabbi Yechon, Mipnei ma zocha Omri lemalchus. Achav's father was Omri, and he wasn't a good man either. So why did he deserve to be a king? He wasn't part of the royal family. He said, you know why? Because he expanded Israel, he added another city. Remember, it says, Vayiken es Ahar, he purchased the city on the mountain, and he purchased the mountain of Shamron, Me'ei Shemer, from this person called Shemer, Bekikrain Kesed, he paid 2 kikrim of silver. Vayiven es Sahara, and he built the city on top of the mountain. Vayikra Shemer Ir, and he named that city Ashebona, that he built, Al Shem Shemer Adonai Ahar, then based the name on the Shemer, who was the governor of this mountain, and he called it Shamron, Samaria. That's where the name Shamron comes from. Why was Achav meriting be a king for 22 years? Because he honored the Torah that was given 22 letters. The 5 extra letters, Mamspach, the final letters that don't count, because remember we learned in the beginning of Megillah, the Nevi'im were the one who revealed it to us. But we knew, we forgot the Nevi'im, brought it back. Shenemar says, Vayishlach malachim al Achav melech Yisrael. And he sent shluchim, he sent agents to Achav. This is Ben Hadad, Melech Yisrael, and it's the Melech Yisrael Ha'ira. And he said to him in the city, he said to him, Ben Hadad. This is what Ben Hadad says. All your money is mine. That your sons and daughters are good, they're mine, they belong to me. Tomorrow, I'm going to send my servants to you. They're going to go searching your house and the house of your servants. And everything that they desire and that which you really love more than anything else, Yasim place in their hands, they will take it. And Achav responded to the agents of Ben Hadad. This is what you say to your master, Hamelach. Everything, all your requests, I'll fulfill. Oh, but this last thing that you said, that which I desire more than anything else, I should give it to you. I will not do that. I refuse. So let me ask you a question. What do you think? What is it that Achav desired so much, or that he thought was so precious, you refused to give? Lav, Sefer Torah. Probably was a Sefer Torah. Says the mother, why? How did he come to that conclusion? Maybe it was his idol. We just said before that everywhere in Israel was replete with these avodah zaros. Maybe that's what it was. Don't think so. I'll prove it to you. The Chesiv, it says in Pasuk following there, it says by Yemru Elav Kol Haskenim, all the elders. Haskenim generally is the people who are intelligent, Zeshakon and Chochma, and they all said the Chol Ha'am, and all the people. Now what they said, don't give it back, don't listen. So we see if it's avodah zara, why would they say that? It must be a Sefer Torah. How do you know? How do you know we're talking about good people? Maybe these are actually bad people. These are Zkanim who are wily, who are empty, and they're not the Chosheves came like you think they are. Milag Siv doesn't we find by Avshalom. When Avshalom wanted to rebel against his father and he was going to kill his father with a whole plan and chase him out of Yerushalayim and kill him. So Avshalom thought it was a good idea. Well, the Eine calls Ziknei Yisrael, in the eyes of all, there's a Keni Yisrael. It says Ziknei Yisrael, and they're all bad people. Rabbi Yosef, Rabbi says Sovi Davasa. Rabbi Yosef said that they were bad people. That they were not good Zikanim. So Gemara says a big difference. Hasam like Siv v'chol ha'am, and all the people. Hachak Siv v'chol ha'am, and everyone else agreed. The Yevshet to Lahavi behind Tzaddikim. There must have been Tzaddikim amongst them, and they all agreed that and there's no way that Tzaddikim will agree to give back, to keep the avodah zarah and not give it back. But a Sefer Torah, it makes sense. But really think about it the other way around. So since most of the people were Rishoyim, and the king threatened to kill them, they don't give them whatever they wanted, why would they agree not to give a Sefer Torah? They were Oiv the avodah zarah, they didn't believe in the Eibishter, and why would they all b'chol ha'am? It works both ways. So also the Rishayim seem to agree with Achav, don't give the person a Sefer Torah. Why not? So it says in the Sfarim that when we read over here about Achav and all those people, we shouldn't think that it means they were totally apokursim, they were non-religious, didn't keep any Torah mitzvahs at all, they didn't believe in anything. It's not at all what it means. In fact, we'll have a Gemara Chulam when we get there. Right in the beginning of the Dalit, if I remember correctly, where the Gemara said that Achav not only kept a kosher home, but Eliyahu ate by him, and the Nevi'im, real Nevi'im, ate by him, and it was 100% kosher. What does that mean? He kept all the mitzvahs. They just also worshipped avodah zarah because in their minds they thought that the Eibishter created the world, but he's not involved in all the trivial and trite things that are going on. And some of these avodah zarahs are like intermediaries, and they're running the whole world. And therefore, they decided they want something tangible that they can relate to, and that's why they had these physical avodah zarahs. But they were shem return mitzvahs. So therefore, when they said the king said, "I want your Sefer Torah," kol ha'am, everyone agreed. We're not giving back the Sefer Torah. But later, Achad got even worse, as we'll see in a minute. Let's think about it further. One second. It says, how do I, sorry?
It
says, how do I know there were tzaddikim amongst those people? Maybe they were all Rishayim. Because it says a pasuk, Hashem says, it will wipe out the whole family of Achad and everybody else. And it says over there, V'isharti b'Yisrael, I will leave behind by the Yidden, Shivas Alofim, I will leave behind 7,000 people. Kol habekayim asher lekoru lebal. These are 7,000 people whose knees did not bow down, prostrate themselves before the Baal for the Avodah Zarah. V'chol hapesh lenosheglai, nor did they embrace the Avodah Zarah. So there were 7,000 tzaddikim. Omer Nachman says, Achav shokol hoya. Nachman comes along after everything we just said and learned. Ramach says, Achav, he was the average person. As Rashi says, he was half and half mitzvahs, half averis. Remember, it said, how do I know? We had a previous Gemara when we learned the sugya about the false Nevi'im, and we learned over there that Hashem said, who is going, that the Navi, Micha, told Achav that don't go to this war because you are going to die in Ramah's Gilad. So the Abishah said, who is going to convince Achav that he should go there so that he can die? The fact that the only way that they were able to get Achav to go to get killed is by convincing him to go to this war means it wasn't so easy to kill him. Now, if he was a total Russia, just kill him. He's a raya that he wasn't a total Russia, he was half and half. But Hashem, who's going to introduce Achav, the Yal, the Yipol, the Ram's Gilad, so he can die in Ram's Gilad? And each one came up with different ideas. At the end, remember, Novus Israeli spirit, as we'll see. Maskar Rabbi Yosef, I don't understand. How can you say that Achav was sort of half mitzvahs, half avedas? Man, the Kosabed is a description about Achav, where it says that you shouldn't be, that this person is not as bad as Achav. Why? What did Achav do that's so bad? He's makir lasa Rabbein Hashem. He basically sold himself to do all the bad things in the eyes of Hashem. In a way, we're not even blaming Achav. He took a wife, Izebel, questionable whether she was ever converted from a different nation, and he married her. And with Tanina, we learned, you want to know how bad Izebel was? We learned that Bechol Yom, every day, every day she went out there and she took golden coins, and and what she did with it was she put it, every day she gave it to Avodah Zarah. The At Omra, you say Shokoloya, that he was half mitzvahs, half Avedis. So what's going back? So he's a Russian. So how come the pasuk says that Shokoloya? Shokol literally means part. It was part mitzvahs, part Avedis, but it wasn't. He was generous with his money. Because he allowed Tamid Chamim to have benefit from his largesse, he was forgiven half. So that's why he reigned for 22 years. Before we said that he kept the 22 letters of the Torah, we go the whole story that he wanted to say the Torah. Now we're saying we were saying that in fact he was full of Vedas, but the tzedakah sort of wiped away half the Vedas. We had a Gemara in Babasha Daf Yud there that there was a widow and everything else, and they needed money, and Binyamin Atzadik was the one who was distributing the money, and he said, I gave up all the tzedakah, and she basically needed a lot of help, so he gave from his own pocket. And the Gemara says that as a result of that, he was given 22 additional years to live. So there's something about 22 for tzedakah. Something about 22 for tzedakah. And interesting also that Yaakov Avinu stayed in Lavan 22 years. He stayed 20, but by the time he came home, it was 22 years. And Yosef was away 22 years. Everything revolves around the number 22. The Gemara continues. So who was, getting back to the story, who was the one who actually convinced Achav to go fight this war? So the Gemara, the Spirit came before Hashem, I will convince him. How? I will go. I will be the one who's giving false prophecy to all these false neviim that Achav raised. And Hashem said to him, Tifta, go. Begam tucha, you'll succeed. But say, leave me. Say, can't do whatever you're doing. So first Gemara says, My Ruach, what spirit is this? This is Novus Israeli who had that vineyard that Achav very much wanted. He wanted to buy it. He wanted to sell it at any cost. So then he made up a whole story there, Achav, that he was a blasphemer, that he committed treason, he brought false eidim, and now the spirit of Novus Israeli wanted to take revenge. So might say, when Hashem said leave, Amar Avina, say mimichitzasi, you have to leave my environs. You can see because it says by me, I can't tolerate someone who speaks falsehood. Even though you're doing the right thing, but it's through falsehood, and I can't tolerate that. Amar Papa, this is the basis for the saying. Papa had a habit of doing this, summing things up and saying some colloquial saying that was at that time. People say, the Pora Kine, those people who want to vent their spleen and their revenge, Machri base at the end, you're hurting yourself. Because he lost the ability to be in the Mechitz of HaKadosh Baruch Hu in order to carry out his revenge. But Yas, Achav is Asheda, Achav went and did Asheda, Yosef, Achav Lasa, Lahach Hashem, he continued doing things just to anger the HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And the case so, Mikol Malki Yisrael, thought he was worse than any king that preceded him. What did he do? What did Achav do so bad? To cause him that he wrote Al Dausa Shemron, the doors of Shemron, Achav Kofa Belekei Yisrael. Achav denies the existence of Hashem. The Ficha, therefore, in the Chegel Yisrael. That's why he forfeited his Gelu. By Vakesh is Achazio. Then there's another king called Achazio, who was a descendant of Menashe. Because Menashe had a son. Menashe's son was I think Yosh. 1 second. Oh no, Menashe had a son called Ammon, which we'll see later was even worse. Each one, in gradation, each one got worse. So you have Ochaz, Chizkiah's father, who was terrible. Chizkiah was a big tzaddik. Then he had a son Menashe who became terrible, and then you had that Ammon, and then you had what do you call it? Chizkiah? Was it Yochaz? So it says over here. We'll just finish here. He was hiding in Shemron. And he was hiding in Shemron. Why was he hiding in Shemron? He was scratching out the name of Hashem in the Sefer Torah. The Kosev Avodas Kachavim Tachtehen. And he was substituted with names of different idols. This is Yehoyachaz. Menashe, what's the name of Menashe? The Ajum of Menashe. Shenosha Ka. He made them forget Hashem. The Barach Menashe, he made the Eden forget Hashem. When no one the loss allowed us, Haino didn't get a share in the world to come. The Tivit says, Ben Shteim Esrei Shana was 12 years old, Menashe B'Molka, when he became a king. The Chamishim B'Chamesh Shana Mo B'Shalayim, 55 years he reigned in Shalayim. V'yas HaSheda Kasher Osa Achav Yisrael, and he did the Avodah Zarah just like Achav. What's the comparison to Achav? Ma Achav Ein L'Chelik L'Olam Haba, Af Menashe Ein L'Chelik L'Olam Haba. Just like Achav had no share in the world to come, neither did Menashe. Okay, and the Gemara will continue. Because Menashe is very controversial. Rabbi Yehuda believed actually that he did tshuva, and for 33 years he was a very good king. And as you'll see, for 22 years he was bad, and then the balance, he was 55 years a king. So 33 years he was very, very good. He was doing tshuva the whole time. Okay, have a good walk.